What's the story, the one that makes you cry?
What's the story? I don't remember if I was an A1C or if I was a senior airman, but I had a patient came in.
First and foremost, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for being here. That was a great quote. That was actually a really good quote.
Thanks. So I'll show you after the show. But you're asking about my bag earlier. I also carry my personal journal or notes. It's a black book that I've had for about 10 years, and it's just full of quotes and questions. And just every time I read a book, I'll take notes in that book and I write it about that book, and I'll write it in that book. But that's something that's helped me so much. And this morning I was actually prepping for this interview because we just met last night or yesterday. I saw that, and it was just really fitting, I think. And I just want to start off by saying that I was shocked yesterday, and we met each other yesterday, and I'll go more into that here in a little bit. But the fact that you're only 22 years old, you have this very natural poise and maturity where, I don't know, it's so impressive. And even before we started recording, I was like, man, I was trying to give you life advice, even though you didn't ask for it, but I was like, I'm gonna give you life advice. And I was telling you that, your worth is so much, and don't fall in love with any scrubs, because you have so much to offer. It's so impressive. I'm excited to see. I feel like 5 years from now, you're gonna be doing something so big and so crazy. And I'm like, oh, she was a guest on my podcast when she was a snot-nosed. And
All my friends last night were commenting, "Don't forget me when you're famous." So.
Yeah, that's right. We met here at a conference. We're here in Dallas right now, and we had a good opportunity just to get to know each other last night. And I listened to a lot of your funny stories.
I have a lot of them.
And grim.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh.
Medical has a different type of humor.
Well, that, and I feel like some of your stories, I'm like, they would be great plots for some type of scary movie or something, right?
100%.
But the first thing I want to ask you is that you paid your way to attend this conference, right?
I did, yeah.
What is it? What drove you? Why is it so important for you to attend in person, where you're like, you know what, I'm willing to invest in myself and pay out of my own pocket?
I don't get opportunities like this very often. I have this platform, I have these followers and I have this stuff, but it's not very often that I actually get asked to be at certain things. So when it came down to it and I found out that I was going to have to pay out of pocket because it wasn't going to be funded, I just decided to do it. So it was for me and for my future and for being able to meet everybody and get new connections and everything. It was worth it. It was so worth it.
Now, again, I was just blown away, and I was actually behind the camera yesterday during with the Summit podcast with Josh White. And again, I was just super impressed, and I love the fact that you're so young, right? And it's easy for people who are probably more established in life or age-wise, career-wise, rank and all that, but just the fact that you're so young and you have this great following and this great mindset. With that, we'll get into a couple different stories, but just where you have a growth mindset. Where does that stem from?
I saw something the other day, and it said that there's people that the military need, and there's, what was it? It was people that the military need and people that need the military. I kind of waver in between those two. I haven't known anything besides the military. I was 17 years old when I joined. The military has raised me and turned me into the person that I am today. So that mindset just kind of comes from that. I don't know anything besides the military, so I've just grown with it.
I love that. Yesterday during the episode with Josh White, you shared some personal stories and the story about your dad. Do you mind just sharing that story again?
Yeah, my dad raised me as a single father. I grew up with my dad, my mother, and then my older sister. And my mom suffers from some mental health issues, and for everyone's well-being, I was taken and moved in with my dad. We lived together. My dad is a police officer. He's retired now. And I lived with my grandma part-time because my dad worked about an hour away. He would travel back and forth just to take me to school. So that was obviously being grown now and being able to see that. the things that my dad did for me are just, there's no words for it. When I was, I think I was 14 when my dad remarried my stepmom, and now I have 2 little brothers. They're 6 and about to be 4, so.
Let's give them a shout out. What's their name?
I don't say their names online, but
right.
I say Bubby and Googs.
Yes,
Bubby
okay.
and Googs.
You talked to them before the podcast,
Yeah.
right? So, your dad, is that where you got your mental toughness from?
I think so, yeah. My dad was very much tough love growing up, so.
It is rare that it's not uncommon for people to be raised by a single parent, but typically it's, usually people being raised by their mom. But just as a daughter of a single dad, how do you feel like that shaped who you are today?
I think it gave me a lot of toughness. Not that I can say that people don't have that certain type of strength, but I really was taught to be independent and that no one is going to provide for yourself besides you. No one is also going to care about yourself more than you. So, I turned 16 and my dad slid me a card and he said, "Congratulations, go buy your groceries, go get a job." I bought my very first car when I was 16. I was working full time at 17. I was working before school and after school. I paid for everything. My dad made me learn how to change a tire on my car before I was even able to be in the car.
How old were you?
16.
My daughter's 11, and
Yeah.
that's something over the next year or two I want to show her.
Yeah.
I love that. So I want to kind of go back or just dig a little bit deeper on this. Was your mom in the picture at all?
Growing up, she was. Her father, my grandfather, my grandpa, he ended up having cancer. I can't remember what type, but it metastasized. It went throughout his entire body. He ended up passing away. When I was in the 2nd grade, my mom was diagnosed with cancer. She had endometrial cancer, which ended up spreading throughout her reproductive system. She ended up having like a full hysterectomy. She was young. She was like 30 something. And she never was the same after that. So she began her own mental health struggles, and as in like my mom and dad, their relationship wasn't great growing up. It was fine until the cancer, and then she got the cancer, and then it was kind of like everything had changed.
So just having a front row seat to all of this and witnessing, the stuff about your mom being raised by a single dad, how has that shaped you? And especially, how has that shaped your emotional intelligence and your ability to emotionally connect with people?
I can't necessarily say that it was a positive outcome, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I tend to distance myself from people.
Yeah.
I don't get connected very easily. Yes, I have friends and I have my family and I have my close inner circle, but everything is very inner circle. I bury a lot of stuff deep down. Obviously now that I'm a little bit older, I know that's not the best for me, but just some of the things that I saw growing up, I know that I never want for myself. I never want any hypothetical future children to see, my future partner. I don't want them to see that.
So it has impacted maybe your ability to trust people?
Absolutely, yeah.
And you mentioned about burying stuff down. So that's great that you recognize that. So what are some ways that you do to maybe force yourself to dig up, for lack of a better phrase or term?
Yeah.
Those feelings, or how do you express that?
I'm getting better at it. Not 100% there, because I still kind of get to the point where it keeps building until I get to the boil over.
Yeah.
And then it's too much. Something happens. It's whatever. I suffer from generalized anxiety disorder.
Okay.
I have depression. I have PTSD. I have a couple different things, and I've just found that being able to have a person that knows what I'm going through is better for me, for them to be able to see some signs that maybe I don't even see in myself.
There's a lot to unpack there.
There's so much.
I'm gonna do, and it's wrapped in the real classy. Well, your dad probably didn't wrap Christmas presents in classy paper, did he? My dad used to just give me stuff wrapped in newspaper.
Okay.
That was how he wrapped gifts.
My dad is a box kind of guy. He'd put everything in a box.
It's fair.
Yeah.
But I feel like with everything you just mentioned, there's a lot to unpack there, and it's wrapped up. But it's that real classy, paper. It's got the nice ribbon and all that stuff. But PTSD, let's talk about that. Where does that stem from?
The PTSD stands from an abusive relationship that I was in just about 2 years ago.
Okay. Do you mind like you shared it yesterday, and,
Yeah.
and it was a good story,
Yeah.
and I think there's a lot of positives for you to. Because to me, that's what I love about you, and just what you're doing with your platform is you are using your platform like, hey, you may be young, but that doesn't mean you don't have experiences, right? Like experiences happen to all ages and all that. But you're using that to help other people. But yeah, do you mind sharing that story?
Yeah, I was in an abusive relationship. It was the first ever relationship that I was in. I got into the relationship when I turned 19, and I got out when I was 20. I was just shy of turning 21. I was a couple weeks away from turning 21. It was controlling. It was full of narcissism and just abuse. Just beyond the level that you could expect was what I had experienced. And the final boiling point that it had gotten to was that he was out of town, and he had made a comment about what I was wearing. It was a blue outfit, and he had made a comment about it, and he wasn't home. So I had called my best friend outside on the patio, and I said that there's no way that he can know what's going on. There's no way that he knows what I'm wearing. Went back inside, started, digging around the room. I'm still on the phone with her. Picked up a bear that was sitting next to the TV, a bear that he had gifted me it was that past Valentine's Day, and I kind of zoomed in on the eye. I'm still on FaceTime with her, and I zoomed in on the eye, and I had made the joke about, like, the nanny camera, like, ooh, like, there's a camera, like, whatever, and I threw the bear on the bed, and then I went to pick up the next stuffed animal, which was also gifted by him, and when I picked it up, it had snagged on the wall. That next 10 seconds is I think just everything happened so quickly, and my mind couldn't keep up with what was actually happening. It snagged on the wall. I saw the wire. I saw the stuffing. I turned it over, and I saw that the eye, looking at it, it was the right eye had been cut out of the stuffed animal. And my friend is yelling at me on the phone, unplug it, just unplug the camera. I unplugged it, and it was at that moment that my ex had texted me, oh, look, you caught on Bravo. So he was watching me. He had been watching me for what I later ended up finding out to be about a month and a half. He had watched me search the bedroom for this camera. He had seen all of that, and he willingly made the choice to cut open this stuffed animal and put a camera in it to watch.
Actually, it even goes back to my trust question, right? Like, even at that point, maybe you had built your trust ability back up, and then just instantly, you mentioned that it was only 10 seconds, but it was going by fast, but did it also feel like an eternity, those 10 seconds in time?
It felt like forever. From the moment that I had pulled it up to when I realized that there was a cord, to flipping it over and seeing the stuffing that was out on the ground, to hearing her and coming back into reality, hearing her yell, unplug the camera, to getting that text message. It was so much in such 10 seconds. It was so much to just process.
It's crazy how life can change in such a short amount of time. Because often when you think about life changes, it's it's going to take months or years. 15 seconds can change everything. On that, war is known to cause physical wounds, right? When we think of PTSD and wounds, it's always someone who has unfortunately lost a limb or some type of scar. But PTSD is also known to be so much more than that, right? It's mental and emotional wounds. What can society do to help heal those invisible wounds?
I think just knowing the signs. I suffered greatly. I became suicidal afterwards.
Yeah.
I didn't want to continue what I was doing. I was burnt out from work. I was the sole medic for my team for 2 providers. I was tired and I was exhausted. And it was at that time that, I just kind of stopped caring. I stopped eating. I was sleeping every single chance that I could. I had no energy. I care about myself. I get ready for myself. I like to make myself look good. I stopped doing my hair for work. I stopped putting makeup on. I didn't care. And it was only to the point where I had stepped on the scale and I realized that I was about 96 pounds that I realized genuinely how sick I was.
Because you had stopped eating, right?
I had stopped.
Yeah.
I stopped caring completely. My anxiety was through the roof. I was a non-functioning human. I was having panic attacks every day, multiple times a day. I was very unwell.
Was there like a specific action or maybe a specific comment that someone, friend, coworker, random stranger, that they did or said to you like in the moment and it made you feel better or it maybe helped?
I think just knowing that I had people there for me.
Yeah.
I was almost embarrassed. I didn't want anyone to know what I had been going through because I had been telling my best friend and one of my coworkers, it was a nurse that I had worked with, I'd been telling them about, you know, kind of like what was happening in the relationship, like the controlling behavior, the untrusting behavior. Like I had told all of these things, and both of them were older than me, and they were like, hey, like this isn't normal. Like what you're going through isn't normal. And I think afterwards, and just hearing them say like, hey, like we're here for you and we're proud that you were able to do that. And just knowing that they were there and could see it was comforting in a way.
That's great. So what is your advice or what are your thoughts on how can someone make people feel significant, especially in a very crowded yet still lonely world?
Yeah, so my love language is gift giving. That is
Okay.
that's my love language.
Is my gift here somewhere? I missed it.
I know. I'm
Like,
sorry, I didn't bring it.
I don't know.
I didn't bring it. I love
Liar.
that.
I'm joking. Go ahead.
I love watching people open up something, and everything that I do, and I say this all the time in my classroom, is that everything I do is with intention. I teach with intention. I do certain things for intention. Everything I do is intentional. So being able to do that for other people, something small, a note, a post-it note, hey, you're doing great, I see you.
Yeah.
Stuff like that, to me personally, goes above and beyond anything else. Just someone really being able to see you.
So after all this, as you reflect back, because even like you're visionary, like we talked some stuff yesterday, like, you know, what your plans are going forward. And last night we were talking with Ashley, actually, and you were discussing, she was talking to you about school, and you were saying, hey, I want to get my degree in this and go forward with that. But you also, again, very reflective, which I love. As you reflect back and everything that you've experienced now up to this point, was there a childhood coping method that you unknowingly developed only to realize now that it's not normal?
I think at the time, and I think that I can say that I've kind of outgrown it, but I used to run away from things. If my parents were fighting in front of me, if something was happening, I would run away. I would just disappear. If I was being accused of things in that relationship, if something were happening, I would run away. I got to the point where I was like, it's too much, I can't handle it, I don't want to be here, and I would run away. I can thankfully say that I've outgrown that, and I face things head on now, even if it sucks, but I deal with it. And yeah, it took a while and a lot of therapy to realize these things.
I want to go a little bit deeper. You talked about running away. So here in August of 2023, what are you running from, and what are you running towards?
I'm running towards my future self. I am so focused on myself that I don't have time, and I think that this is really the first time in my life that I've ever cared about myself more than other people. And I'm not saying that in a selfish way, as in like, oh, like I don't care about you, or like I don't care about what's happening, but like I said, and I tell this to my students too, that no one is going to care about yourself more than you.
Yeah.
No one is going to care about yourself more. No one is going to care about your career more than yourself. And I say that all the time, that in the military you have to have a certain level of selfishness, because you are the person that's going to get yourself there. So I think this is the first time that I've really like sat back and focused on myself. What am I running away from? Bills. I'm paying them, but I hate them. It's terrible.
Describe your future self.
She's happy. She is healthy. She is thriving. And
With Bo?
With Bo, my dog. He's about
By the
to
way, I
be
have a
3.
lab mix as well.
Yeah?
A black lab mix.
I should have brought him. He
Yeah.
would have just sat in here and chilled. With Bo, Bo's going to be by my side, my travel companion, my soul dog, everything there. And I'm going to be doing great things. What I'll be actively doing, I don't know. Whether I'll be commissioned, whether I'll be enlisted still. I know I'm staying in the military. The military's done so many great things for me, but we'll see.
Where do you fall on the vulnerable versus thick-skinned continuum?
Ooh, it was funny. The other day, someone had called me sensitive.
Really?
Someone had called me sensitive, and I was sitting with my best friend. I was sitting with Olivia, and she looks down at this text message, and she goes, "You are the farthest person from sensitive I've ever met." Vulnerable, I will be vulnerable. There is a couple stories that I will always tell to my class to make them be able to see, like, hey, like, you matter as a medic. Like, the stuff that you go through matters. There's always one story that I tell. I always cry. I always cry. I always have a couple people in the class that cry. That is the most vulnerable that I get. But I feel like they need to be able to see that, to see, like, oh, like, Sergeant isn't a hard ass all the time. Like, she can do that, like, that kind of stuff. So I am more thick-skinned. Stuff doesn't really get to me if someone says something nasty or someone's mean. It's like, okay, well, let's dig deeper into you and what you're going through.
Yeah.
So,
What's the story, the one that makes you cry?
what's the story? I don't remember if I was in A1C or if I was a senior airman, but I had a patient came in. Most of my career has been in women's health. I adore women's health. It is my career. It's my passion. It's what I strive to be. I had this patient come in, and she had a birth control implant in her arm. It's called Linexplanon. It's good for 5 years. She'd only gotten it placed about 4 months prior to that. Typically, we like to wait about 6 months before we do anything to take it out. She comes in, and she goes, "I want it taken out." And I was like, okay, well, like, let's talk about it. Like, what is happening? Like, are you having bad side effects? Do you not like it? She was very short. She was very cold. She was avoiding eye contact. She goes, "I just want it out." I was like, okay, well, like, let's see. And I was like, trying to just dig a little bit deeper because I could tell that there was something else that she needed. And we just kept talking, and she's like, "I'm not seeing anyone, like, I'm not with anyone, like, there's no point of me having birth control." And I was like, okay, but that doesn't mean, like, in a couple months you're not going to meet someone and you're not going to, do whatever. And she got upset, and we always have the questions, and the question that we always ask is, are you suicidal? Do you have any thoughts of hurting yourself or hurting others? And my back is to her because I'm typing on the computer. I can hear her, like, shuffling around. I asked the question, and typically if someone's going to ask that question and you're not suicidal, they're going to say no right away. If there's any type of hesitation, all of my flags are drawn. If there's any hesitation, I am focused on you 100%, and she hesitated. I turned around and I said, "What's going on?" And she became the most angry I think that I've ever seen someone. And I looked at her, and she still wasn't looking at me, and she had, like, hot tears, like, just streaming, and her fists were, like, clenched up. And I asked her if she had been assaulted, and she very quickly said no. So I call on the phone, and I have someone else step in the room so that I can leave, because I'm not going to leave her in the room alone. I go back to the provider. I said, like, "Hey, I don't really know what's happening." She kind of hesitated, like, something's off. I later ended up finding out that this was the same day. It was, like, all within an hour, but she was being assaulted by it was 7 or 8 of her male coworkers. And she thought that if she were able to get the birth control removed, that she would get pregnant and that they would stop doing it. And everything in my heart just broke for her. She had said that she had become suicidal and she didn't want to continue just because she had been going through all of this. And it was terrible. And I walked her upstairs, and I sat with her in mental health for about 20 minutes until she was called back, and she said thank you, and she went back. And I went upstairs the next day to, like, check and see, like, what was going on, and She had checked herself out, and I don't know what happened to her.
Do you feel any guilt?
I don't. I don't feel guilt because I know in my heart and my soul that I did everything that that I could do, and I did everything as a medic that I could do to help her. I gave her the resources, I was there, but there's only a certain level that I can take back home with me, or else it becomes too much for me and my mental health.
I guess since that time, how much have you learned about the importance of the skill of detachment?
I think that that's when like I really learned how to detach. I went back to my favorite captain ever, and I went into her office, and I was so angry, and I just was like, there's so much more that we could have done. And she told me that she was like me. She's a PA, and she would go home and she would write in her notebook about these patients that she couldn't stop thinking about, and she would force herself. She would have to detach from them, or else she was just going to keep carrying the burden of the what ifs.
So now, again, I've brought up your age a couple times because, again, it shows that leadership comes at all ages, all ranks. So I think the fact that, you're very young in your career, young in life, but again, you're someone to follow, someone that to me just screams a mentor. What is your advice to someone who's had near identical experiences and hardwired the same way as you? Because I know there's other people out there just like you. They're just unturned stones, right?
Yeah.
Uncovered gems. So again, yeah.
Yeah, everyone has a story. At the end of the day, the people that you walk by in the street, everyone has a story. Everyone is here for whatever reason. Everyone has gone through their own hardships. No one has a perfect life. And I think it's just being able to, going back to being vulnerable with them, being able to be scrolling on social media and be like, wow, like I can relate to this, and I can't believe that they're sharing this part of their life or this part of their story. I think being vulnerable and being able to be there for other people, to what degree you want to be there for other people, that's up to you. But for someone else to be able to see the story and be like, oh, like that was me however many years ago, or that is me right now, I think it's a good thing.
So as also a follow-up to that, as people dredge up past memories, and even for you, I mean, you've had a lot of memories, a lot of experiences. What is something you do specifically to cope with it all?
With the things that come back up?
Or just in general, like, maybe if you think like, maybe life's good for 6 months and then all of a sudden this random negative thought from your past pops in. But what's something you do to build up the positive momentum, just to stay positive and just to keep growing and not be weighed down by anything that was holding you down in the past?
I'm the happiest I've ever been in my entire life right now.
That's great.
I have never been this happy, this content, this just at peace with where my life is at right now. I have myself, I have a beautiful house, I have a car, I have my dog, I have everything that I need right now.
Shout out to Bo.
Shout out to Bo. What a guy. But when those negative thoughts come back, it's like taking two steps backwards to take one step forward. I can't keep doing that. Can't keep going backwards. I have to keep going forward. I have to keep going towards those goals. I don't have the time to take those steps backwards.
Okay.
Do I allow them to come? Yeah, sure. I'll allow the negative thoughts to come and process them as they come, but I don't dwell in them. I don't sit in them. Gotta keep pushing.
Love it. I want to transition to some lighter topics.
Okay.
I know we got into some deep stuff. We can keep talking about stuff.
It's up to you. I'm cool with whatever.
You're very cool. That's you're not an intel nerd, as we discussed
I did
last
say
night.
that last night.
All right. These questions have no specific order. It's just random, miscellaneous, fun questions.
Okay.
So there's no rhythm to it.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I am so ready.
If you need to call a lifeline, you can call your dad or you can call Bo.
Okay, I will phone Bo up.
What is an unusual habit or an absurd thing that you love? For example, I won't say who it is. I know someone who loves go eat Cool Ranch Doritos with the tuna fish that's in the.
That is disgusting.
They swear by it. Anyway, so yeah.
What's an unusual thing that I love?
Yeah, an unusual habit or an absurd thing that you love.
Does it have to be food related?
It could be anything.
Okay, I love cracking bones. I feel like that's not even that weird, but I love cracking bones. I don't know, my neck, like fingers, other people's fingers. I love it.
Fun fact.
Yeah,
So I watch chiropractic videos.
same, all the time.
And there's a it's a weird thing. I don't know. My wife will walk in at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm on my laptop. I switch to something else because it's easier to explain.
Oh, yeah,
You
yeah.
know. She's like, "Are you watching chiropractic videos again?" But there's a term for that, like a crack addict.
No.
Yeah. But there's a
Really?
channel that I watch where he's a chiropractor for like
Yeah.
athletes, and so he's always doing stuff on football players
Yeah.
and MMA fighters and all that stuff. But it's
Like if I hear someone else cracking their bones, like right now, like I'm itching to crack my fingers. I do it all the time.
so that is unusual, but it's not weird. It's not
Yeah.
uncomfortable. Or maybe it is weird, but I think a lot of people secretly
Yeah.
they enjoy it, right? I see people popping their necks all the time. When you think of the word successful, who is the first person that comes to mind and why?
My dad. My dad. He's been a cop my entire life. He became a police officer when he was 21, actually. He retired after, I believe it was 25 years. He now gets to travel the country and teach on mental health. He was actually here at this hotel about 2 weeks ago doing a different thing. But he travels around teaching different police units and dispatch units about mental health and de-escalation, and he actually came into my ALS class and taught, and now he teaches with them. But it's great, and he's just completely transformed because I did get to see my dad go through depression, and I did get to see that after everything, and seeing where he's at now, he's doing great.
That's remarkable, especially, just able to use that experience and not just bottle in, but again, just, hey, here's some lessons or, a better pathway for other people.
Yeah.
No, that's great. I feel like I have an answer for you, but I'm going to let you answer. What purchase of $100 or less has most impacted your life and why?
My dog.
How much did it cost?
He was like $50 at
Really?
the pound, yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
great.
What were you gonna say?
The ring light.
Okay, the ring light was a great purchase. It was a great investment, but
Yeah.
no, definitely Bo.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't realize he cost $50. I mean, that's a
He's
steal.
a shelter dog. He's
Yeah.
a mutt. He's the best puppy ever.
We adopted our dog as well, and I'll
Yeah.
show you pictures after this.
Oh, yeah.
I love him so much. When you think of a movie image that depicts leadership, who or what comes to mind?
I just watched this movie with my class the other day. I can't think of the name of it. There's two that come to mind. They're like the classic military movies. Pittsburgher,
Yeah.
and Hacksaw Ridge.
Okay.
And they're both medics, and I'm like, wow, it's so funny. After I show those movies, my classes are always like, Sergeant, we want to go do hot medic stuff. We want to go out there. And I was like, that was during Vietnam, guys. We're not, this isn't Vietnam. We've advanced since then. But just being able to see what they did and how selfless they were and how much they stood their ground to be able to get their people out and be able
Yeah.
to save their people. And Pittsburgher gave his life
Yeah.
to be able to save the people. So that, again, incredible.
Yeah, a Medal of Honor recipient.
Yeah.
If you were given a billboard and it could be placed anywhere in the world with your message on it for everyone to read and see, where would you place a billboard and what would your leadership message say?
The middle of Times Square. 100%. So much traffic there. It's great advertisement. In the
I don't think
middle
anyone's
of
ever
Times
given, I ask this on every single podcast, I don't think anyone's ever given that response.
Square. You gotta get the most amount of people. If you're trying to get a message out, we're going for the number of people. We're going for volume here.
This is why you have all those followers. We need, we need numbers for people.
I'd advertise well. What would my message be? Oh gosh, there's so many. Probably something about strength and bravery. I said the Winnie the Pooh quote yesterday, you're stronger than you know, braver than you think. And like Josh said yesterday, dude's got some fire quotes. And it's great, and it really is true. And I said yesterday that strength, everyone holds strength and bravery, but it comes out in different times, to different levels, to different degrees, whatever is needed. And there's always going to be those people that have that doubt. I'm not strong enough to do that. I'm not brave enough to do that. They have it inside of them, but it's up to them to determine when it's going to show and when it's going to come out and when they're going to be able to use it to their advantage or when it's going to come out to show to their disadvantage.
Okay. That's great. I love that. Last question.
Okay.
What does the hero of your story want?
The hero of my story?
Yeah.
To change lives. I want to change lives.
Yeah, that's great. That might be the name of this podcast episode. Last thing,
Okay.
even though we're in a big ballroom in Podcast Studio B,
We were in
I don't see my gift anywhere. Maybe it got lost in the mail.
Maybe.
But I do have a gift for you.
Do you?
Yeah. You're just proof, like, mentorship is two ways, right? Just because I'm older and I've been in longer doesn't mean that I'm automatically like a mentor or this mentorship is one way. You know, there's quite a bit of an age difference between us, but you're someone I was like, man, there's a lot that I could be mentored by her. So again, thanks just for being a great mentor. And you are so beautiful inside and out. And I want nothing but the best for you. Like, I'm rooting for you. And I don't know what I can do for you, but if there's anything I can do for you, please don't hesitate. But I just want to give you my personal coin.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you mean a lot to, like, I've only known you for 2 days, but I feel like our paths crossed for a reason, and you have positively impacted me. So thank you so much for joining my podcast. It's been an honor.
Thank you. I appreciate it so much. This is a beautiful coin. It's going to go on my shelf. It's going to go front and center. I appreciate it. No, I am so grateful to be able to be given these opportunities to come out here and do stuff like that. Like I said, I firmly believe that everything happens for a reason. I think our paths cross for a reason, whether that's mentorship, leadership, a friend, whatever. But thank you, and I genuinely appreciate it.
Hey, thanks, Riley.